Hi guys, welcome to Skarbekstudio. Today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about shirring. So you can make cute clothes like this at home. Let's go. One thing you'll need to get if you want to shirr your fabric is elastic thread. If you go to your local store, you will notice that usually elastic threads come in two colors, black or white. For example, my local store only carries white elastic thread. Sometimes they have yellow, but not always, and I don't really need yellow, so the only one that I can easily get is white. You don't need to match your elastic thread to your fabric like you normally would with normal thread, because elastic thread will only be visible on the wrong side of the fabric. So that's one thing that you need to know. But of course, there are places like Etsy where you can find elastic thread in any color you can imagine. So if you like to do that, then of course, you can purchase different colors, but I never do. You will have to wind your bobbin with elastic thread by hand. You cannot use your automatic bobbin winder on your sewing machine, as it would stretch your elastic thread way too much. To wind the bobbin, apply slight tension, I mean like the tiniest bit of tension, and take your time. Once your bobbin is full, cut the elastic thread and place your bobbin inside your machine exactly the same way you would load your regular bobbins. Now it would be a good time to thread your sewing machine with just a regular thread. When you're ready, pull the elastic thread outside of the machine. To do it, simply lower your needle, catch the elastic thread with normal thread and pull it to the outside. Your sewing machine is basically ready to shear. Let's talk about what type of fabric is best for shirring. The best fabric to use for shirring, in not only my opinion but everybody else's, is lightweight type of fabric. You can use viscose, cotton, rayon, you can use linen, any type of fabric that is lightweight. If you wish to use something heavier, then you'll have to play a little bit with machine tension and stitch length. Fabric might not shear as nicely as it would otherwise, so just keep it in mind. What settings are the best for shirring? First of all, set your machine to a regular straight stitch. When it comes to stitch length, your machine is set by default to a certain number. In my case, it is 2.5. You'll have to increase it by quite a lot, and by a lot I mean to about 4 or more. I like to increase my stitch length to the most my machine can let me, which is 4.8 for this Singer machine. The rule basically is the longer the stitch, the tighter the shirring. So play around with it, always test it on a piece of fabric first, ideally the fabric you're planning to use. Let's talk about tension. So I have an automatic sewing machine, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really change my tension for shirring. This setting usually works best, but it all depends on your sewing machine and fabric you're using. Sometimes moving it one up or one down can make your shirring look better, so just play with it and see what works best for you. Let me actually show you some examples. Okay, here stitch length is set to 4.8 and tension to auto. Here tension is set to +1. And here tension is set to -1. As you can see, it's not really working when the tension is lower. All right, here tension is set to auto. All those examples because fabric is really lightweight and that works best for me. Here tension is set to +1 because the fabric is just a little thicker. And here tension is set to +2 because this fabric is heavier. All right, this is stitch length 4.8. This one is 3.5. And this one is 2.5. As you can see, there's a little bit of a difference. So how do you actually shear? Let me show you. In this example, I'm going to use a lightweight fabric, which is best for shirring. To shear, you simply have to sew rows of straight parallel lines. They can be close together or as far apart as an inch or so. It all depends on the sewing pattern you're using, or to be honest, on your personal preference, so you can do whatever you want with it. Some people like to draw straight lines on the right side of the fabric with a water-soluble marker just for reference. I actually prefer to use machine needle plate or even a presser foot, the edge of presser foot, as a guide, especially when I'm working on a big surface. It takes too much time to draw each line separately. If you're just starting and are not that confident with your sewing machine, I would actually recommend that you use fabric that has some sort of pattern on top that can serve you as a guide, like checkered, gingham, something like that. It can save you a lot of time. I'm going to show you now how to sew your first row. To start, you need to reinforce your stitch at the beginning and at the end of the line. A lot of people recommend to backstitch, but I personally prefer to change the stitch length to 0.5, so a couple of stitches, then change back to whatever length you decide to use. In my case, I'm going to use 4.8. The machine will make this squeaky-ish sound. It's all normal, so don't worry. When I'm about to get to the end of my seam, I change the stitch length back to 0.5 to reinforce the seam at the end. Then I continue the same pattern for the rest of the rows. So this is the first method, which I personally use and recommend, but there's also another method which you can just sew a continuous line and at the end of each row pivot and go to the one under and sew another line. I would just say that with the second method, when you pivot and go to the next row, change your stitch length to a smaller number. I also wanted to mention that if you want to hem the shirred part of the garment, like neckline, waistline, maybe cuff, then you need to hem it prior to shearing the fabric. Here are some examples. And at the end, hover your iron with steam setting on over your shirring. It will make it shrink even more. Here are some things that you may want to consider if you have trouble shearing your fabric. So if you see skid stitches, your thread gets tangled like crazy, or I don't know, the tension is off, just try rethreading your sewing machine first and then see if it helps. If it doesn't, I would say try to rewind your bobbin again. A lot of people recommend that you don't put any tension when winding your bobbin. I would say opposite, you need a little bit of tension, because if there's no tension, it's just not gonna look good. So try to do it a few times, and if it doesn't work, I mean, it should work. Third and most important is your tension. Tension is so important. So I gave you this example before and I thought I'm going to show it to you again. So what I like to do is to set up my tension on automatic mode, because it works very well for me. As you can see here, this is automatic. It works amazing for shearing. I've noticed if I put it on +1, so I increase my tension, it's honestly even better. So it's perfect. If I work on fabric that's heavier, +2, +3, works even better. So that's something that you need to remember. But I've noticed with my sewing machine, if I put my tension on -1, -2, it's not even, I cannot even do it because it's just not gonna work. But if I put it on -1, you will see very loose thread on the outside and honestly on the inside as well. And you can just kind of slide the thread around and it's not looking good. So for me, automatic tension, or if I increase tension a little bit, works amazing for shearing. You might fix your tension and everything will be fine. Fourth thing that you can check is stitch length. It's less likely because most of you know that if you shear, your stitches need to be longer, but in case you don't, then that's something that you can check on your sewing machine. I hope this video will encourage you to try shearing, especially if you're a little too scared to sew zippers or you just don't want to sew darts. Shearing is the way to go. So if you have any questions, then you can leave them down below. Don't forget to like this video, as it helps me to reach more people that want to learn how to sew. And that is it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.